The voice of sharing, Durian ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. I'm Grace.
Hi, good morning. This is Gowri.
And we are on ASEAN Dailies, where we deliver news from Southeast Asia. So Gowri, let's start with our upcoming event in Malaysia, and this is going to be one of the biggest sort of the social movement in Malaysia, correct?
That's right. We're talking about the rally that's happening this weekend. Kind of in conjunction with our Independence Day, but not quite as well. Of course, we're talking about Bersih 4, and there's been a lot of news, videos, Facebook page about Bersih 4. What is it all about? Should we go? Should we not go? And this time we have the US and German embassies who have come in to actually show their support towards the Bersih 4 movement.
It looks like they are also very interested because this is the fourth one already. And then these two countries, they really want to see and observe this Bersih 4, which is a public gathering this coming weekend. And then there was an email that to one of the news agency, Bernama, the US embassy mentioned the United States will recognize the intended peaceful nature of this protest and also supports the fundamental freedom of expression, association, and a peaceful assembly. Well, to be honest, from this comment, it sounds very diplomatic. But however, there are lots of different aspects of Bersih 4 when it comes to, the social movement in Malaysia, because throughout the historical sort of events, there were lots of violence happened and people got hurt, and there was more tension that was built between the government and the public.
I think you're right. When it comes to Bersih, there's a lot of different layers to dissect, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are confused as to whether or not they want to attend Bersih, and how will this Bersih be different from all the others. And speaking of the United States as well, saying that they recognize the intended peaceful nature of this protest and supports the fundamental rights of freedom of expression, peaceful assembly. I think that is actually a very important thing to note.
For sure.
Because being a democratic country, it's important for every citizens to know their fundamental rights as well. And I think not a lot of people are aware. Some still operate on this mindset where, it's a rally, let me just go and see what happens. And some people even think that, can I even go? Is this legal? But the fact is that as a citizen of the country, you do have the right to go out and gather peacefully and voice out if you're not happy about something. And that is not something that's against the law. It's not something that's illegal. It's simply your right as a citizen, especially in a democratic country when you have a prime minister.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. And these two countries, they really, really respect and by the, the freedom of expression. And the freedom of expression in Malaysia, I will say it's very sensitive and it could be controversial to extent. But then we really hope that this freedom of expression movement and the right to peaceful assembly, this social gathering in this weekend will end in a positive note. But then in the conjunction with 1MDB and also the Bersih, sort of there was a mixed messages going on. According to a lot of agency, as well as, coming from simply just by looking at the social media, you can just, read all those comments and how people do analyze. And then there are a lot of social catchy sort of article which says 10 important items that you should bring to Bersih and what are things that you should know.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note all that as well, especially if you are going to the rally, especially if it's your first time and you don't know what to expect. There are a lot of guidelines available on Facebook as well.
Right.
And I think another interesting part of this news is that the British High Commission could not be reached. And I don't know if it's controversial for me to say this, but I would like to hear what the British High Commission would have to say, because they were the ones who gave us our independence, and to see the country swamped in so much of chaos and unrest and a lot of dissatisfied citizens of the country, I would really like to hear what they have to say about that.
Yes. Well, it's coming on very soon, so we'll keep you guys updated on the Bersih 4 news. And then let's move on to the political news after this short break. We'll come back.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Trian ASEAN. You are with Grace.
Good morning, this is Gowri.
So we'll continue our news on the political side of Southeast Asia here. So apparently, according to Singapore, there will be a general elections on September 11th, and then the Singapore will go to this ballot box on the September 11th to elect 89 members of a parliament in the 29 constituencies as well. And this nomination day is on the September 1st, which will kick off the period of the campaigning.
And the polling day was announced after President Tony Tan Keng Yam, on the advice of Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, dissolved Singapore's 12th Parliament on Tuesday. And acting on the Prime Minister's advice, the President also issued a writ of election which specifies nomination day on 1st of September. And he said he calls this election to seek everyone's mandate to take Singapore beyond SG50 into the next century.
Right.
And especially important because they have had 50 successful years. And of course, whoever that takes over after this will have to continue the legacy of Singapore and their match of success.
Of course. I mean, it is very important. And then there are just additional information, as in like what happens during the Singapore elections. So basically, political parties are gearing up for this GE in Singapore. But until the Singapore Parliament has dissolved and also President has issued the writ of election, nothing is set yet. And then it also done upon the advice of the Prime Minister. And as of the press time, the writ of election has not been issued yet. And then also under this law, the general election must be held within 3 months after Parliament has been dissolved.
And since the Parliament was dissolved on Tuesday, I'm assuming Singapore has 3 months from the 25th of August up until 3 months from there for them to actually carry out the general election. And of course that comes with a lot of other procedures as well. They have their candidate nominations which will have to be submitted at least 5 days after the writ of election.
Right.
And then there's the electoral deposit that all the candidates will have to pay, in which they will be forfeited if they are unable to meet 12.5% of the minimum votes. And apart from that, the polling day should also fall between 10 to 56 days after publication of the notice. And right after that, the nominated candidates will be able to campaign for their respective manifestos up until the day of the polls.
So it seems that there is a sort of structured steps one by one when it comes to election in Singapore, and then whole Singaporean population will follow this step and also put their eyes on the general elections. And then also, of course, on the polling day, voters will mark their choice of these candidates on the papers at their assigned polling stations. So once voting has ended, the box of the ballot papers will be sealed and transported to the counting stations, where all those votes will be tallied as well. So if the number of the overseas votes is unlikely to affect the outcome of election, the nominated candidates with the greatest number of votes will be elected.
Right. And it seems like Singapore is geared up for a whole different era this time in the country.
For sure.
Especially with the upcoming elections, which is quite near as well, September 11. Don't know if they actually have 3 months to prepare for that. But of course, going back to what Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has said whoever that is selected in this next elections will play a very, very important role in spearheading Singapore as a country, moving the country forward and continue to build its reputation
Right.
as one of the most successful countries in Southeast Asia.
For sure. And just for your information, the results will be published in the Singapore Government Gazette, which is the official publication for all public notices by the government. So you can visit www.egazette.com.singapore.sg, so you can find more information, and you can also see the Gazette can be also be viewed online at this particular website.
So that is pretty much what happens in Singapore during the elections. That was a quick rundown for everybody. So let us know if you have any updates about the
Sure.
Singapore elections on our Facebook page and also on Twitter.
Well, let's travel back to our country, Malaysia. Malaysian Prime Minister, he's under fire for comparing LGBT community to Islamic State.
That
This is quite
is-
controversial, isn't it, Gowri?
It is. Actually, it was all over Facebook yesterday, and I think we also received a few emails from certain ASEAN civil societies
Right.
voicing their disconcern about our Prime Minister's statement, where he likened all these LGBT advocates community to extremist groups, like you mentioned. One of
Yeah.
them is the Islamic State. And he said that these groups are actually hiding behind the facade of human rights to approve their acts which deviate from Islamic teaching. So they're actually trying to proliferate something that is against the teachings of Islam. And he, well, it's okay for him, I think, to not be okay with that as Prime Minister, but for him to compare them to a group of extremists and I would say even terrorists, that is taking it a bit too far.
I guess so, because he also mentioned that such groups include all those Islamic states and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. They are targeting the younger generation to spread their ideologies. And it is very true, to be honest, on the social media. Now, though, when it comes to LGBT community, it has become part of our society, and that it has become norm. I mean, back to those days, they were really, sort of discriminated against all this community. But now we have accepted them. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, he has shown his concern, basically. But then to apply this community, saying that they are the extremist group and that they compare to Islamic states, I think he himself went a bit extreme
That's
in
right.
this comment. Yeah.
And I think you're right about the Facebook part, where these days a lot of people just tend to follow the trend on social media. They tend to jump on the bandwagon. So if accepting gay marriages is an in thing, I think most people don't even give it much thought. They just want to be a part of the cool gang, and they would just also say, like, yeah, I support LGBT without probably even knowing what it really is.
Right.
But then again, I think that even if they do that, it's something, it doesn't really show their ideology, because they are just going with the flow, and it doesn't really show that, oh, I'm really advocating this cause for a certain reason. And one of the person who is really not happy about the statement is Phil Robertson, who is the Deputy Director of Human Rights Watch in Asia, where he told Washington Blade that it's beyond outrageous that he compared people asserting their rights to love to people who wish the actions of Islamic states to find recruits. I mean, he's absolutely right. These two groups of people have completely different agendas,
Exactly.
completely different plans of actions, different sets of end goals, and it's kind of irrelevant even to mention these two in the same breath.
I don't know what caused him to compare these two groups from the first place. But then, like you mentioned, we totally agree with you, where these two have a totally different agenda, and it just cannot simply be compared to these two community. Even if they can be very extreme, does mean that they have they share this common ground to affect the younger generations.
And I think it also goes back to Malaysia being the chair of ASEAN this year,
Yep.
where there's this whole group actually fighting or trying very hard to advocate LGBT rights in the region, and then there you have the chair of ASEAN comparing this group of people to the
Exactly.
Islamic State. that they are being extremist in their cause.
And then also, they have been viewing Prime Minister Najib's statement when it comes to LGBT. And then it seems that it is ongoing discrimination, and also violence, and it is attacking the whole community. And of course, the whole community of LGBT, they are not really happy with the comments coming from the Prime Minister. And this is another sort of a topic that that sort of poured oil to the fire,
right.
and especially on social media.
And they also said that by denying human rights for all these LGBT IQ people, he is indirectly inciting acts of hatred in the name of culture and religion.
Yep.
And I think, whatever he said is definitely open for different perspective or different interpretation by different people. And for him to say something like this about the community of LGBT, I think they have every right to be offended as well and to speak out against it. And they also said that Najib's statement reflects the problem of human rights, which is trying to be promoted, trying to be discussed in ASEAN, but haven't really had a platform. And they're attributing that back to what he said, that it's because of this kind of mentality that we cannot really move forward when it comes to human rights, or even granting like fundamental human rights to people in the region, and especially if you look at human rights from a specific social, cultural, or religious background.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, connecting ASEAN to this issue and this whole group. Well, it could be one of the human rights issue, but then, as a ASEAN community, it's really important to embrace all this community as one, not to, attack or blaming or even discriminate against this particular issues. And according to them, they also said a universality of human rights. It is very important, the principle which is to ensure that the rights of marginalized persons, including LGBT, these are all important community in our society as well. So we need to be able to embrace, not just dashing them or discriminate them.
And of course, earlier this year, we had our opposition leader convicted of sodomy as well, because same-sex sexual activity still remains illegal in Malaysia.
Yep.
So that just proves the fact that we are really not ready, I think, to advocate the rights of LGBT for same-sex marriage or relationships.
I guess we really need to update our mentality as well here. Well, before we wrap up our political side of Southeast Asia, let's move on to Myanmar's news, where Myanmar's military chief, he said the armed forces will respect the vote as well. The Myanmar's powerful commander-in-chief has said that the military will respect the outcome of the country's vote, which will be held in the November 8th election, and is seen as the crucial test of Myanmar's reform process.
I don't quite believe him because
Go on.
I think there was another election back in 1990 which was actually won by the opposition party, but the vote was not recognized by the military. And also the 2010 ballot itself was there was a lot of news saying that it was rigged and boycotted by the NLD. And I think Myanmar is a country that definitely has a very strong presence of military. They even make up a huge part of the parliament, the lawmakers. And, I still do think that they will have some sort of influence on the outcome of the elections, that they cannot completely do away with it.
Well, that's very true. And
I'm not convinced.
Yeah, you don't sound convinced at all. Well, according to them, they said that we don't mind even if all this party NLD won this next general election, as long as it is free and fair. People are all looking forward to have a freedom of expression in Southeast Asia. It looks like, especially back to Myanmar, where they are having their own transition from military to democratic system. And then, of course, it will be a crucial test of Myanmar's reform process. But then let's see whether this whole election will be respected and also be able to carry out the fair and clean elections after all.
And of course, they tried to somewhat end the military government in 2011 after 49 years of military rule. But like I mentioned, I think they are still present pretty much in the country's political arena. So, like you said, we'll see what happens during the elections. If they really respect the outcome of the election, or if there's any controversy surrounding it.
Well, just to end our news commentary on the political side, there's also update from Myanmar that they want to gear up the bridge development gap between themselves and also rest of the ASEAN.
And I think this comes in line with all the other countries who are also moving forward in terms of its economic reforms, because they're all rushing to meet the deadline of the AEC, and they're also trying to keep up with other countries, because we know ASEAN is a country, ASEAN is a bloc with 10 different countries, and everyone currently there are different parts of the race, I think, and which is why they're all gearing up to narrow the gap between each other. So it'll be easier for us when it comes to the integration process, so that nobody is left way behind.
Well, it looks like they're rushing, but then let's see. We hope for the best when it comes to AEC. There are so many countries that are trying in ASEAN, trying to narrow down the gaps, and there are still areas that need to be adjusted, of course. And also, apart from the Myanmar, even Cambodia, all these developed countries, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, these countries are also very important countries when it comes to development projects as well. So we'll continue our news on the economic side of Southeast Asia after this short break. So stay tuned.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Drian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You're with Grace.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And we are on the ASEAN Dailies. We deliver news from Southeast Asia. Now we are focusing on the economic side of Southeast Asia here. And we've been talking about this agreement, which is called TPP. And all these Asian countries shift their focuses on the regional trade after its delay, apparently. And these Asian countries, they have agreed to speed up the conclusion of this agreement, but then there has been a delay completing this U.S.-led pact, and this is something that which is pretty crucial when it comes to ASEAN economic growth, and it is apparently showing the sort of slowdown in hitting financial markets.
And the trade negotiators from all the 16 RCEP countries, and RCEP is the regional trade that we're talking about, due to meet again in South Korea in October for a wrap-up. To wrap up the trade barrier cutting aspects of the agreement in time for potential endorsement by regional leaders at the East ASEAN Summit in November. And speaking at the meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysian trade minister said that the biggest issue we have resolved today was agreement on modality in goods, meaning that the level of tariff reduction, and I consider this to be a major achievement. And he's absolutely right. That's one of the things that we have been going for from the start. The mention of the AEC, we've been going to see how the tariff reduction can work in this region, and that's one of the things that they have finally managed to resolve in the meeting.
That is very true. And also this completing this particular agreement would set the region up for some enormous opportunities that will present in years and decades ahead on account of the exploding middle class, of course. And together with the RCEP and the TPP, this would lay this groundwork for helping to realize the ambition of this free trade area across the Asia Pacific. And this is one of the main points when it comes to free trade, the agreement, and also to be able to reach out a few other countries other than ASEAN.
And of course, RCEP is also competing very closely with TPP, which is why when TPP got delayed, everyone is quickly moving to RCEP, especially countries in Asia, because of course we are closely related to China as well as one of our biggest trading partners, and it only makes sense for us to be more how do I say it, more reliant towards China as opposed to US, which is quite far away. And also apart from being biggest trade partners, China is also providing a lot of funds for infrastructure building around the region. So I think if US wants to compete with that, they really need to gear up. Buck up, because otherwise China will just sweep in and get all the countries to sign up with
For
them.
sure. Well, to continue the news from there, I mean, of course, ASEAN really needs to have the single capital market. But the tricky part here is whether it's achievable by the end of this year or even near future, because we are having the problem with when it comes to currencies. Our ASEAN, not only ASEAN, Asian currency overall, it's dropping quite dramatically, and this is a worrisome. Then of course a single market will bring a lot of beneficial elements to ASEAN countries especially, and then they will also solve some of the issues that we have. However, it is also very difficult to ignore our currency status.
And I think one of the reason that we are going for the AEC is because apart from the free movement, the free flow of goods, services, capital and all that, one of our aim is to achieve a single capital market as well. And this is what has been addressed by Maybank Chief Executive Officer John Chong, who said that a single production-based market would work very well for all the companies in the member countries, and it would help to bring their businesses to the next level as well. And he said that so far Maybank is the only bank in ASEAN with on-the-ground operations in all ASEAN countries where they have more than 1,100 branches, and the investment banking arm of Maybank, which is Maybank Kim Eng, has presence in 10 countries worldwide as well.
Wow.
And he's looking at this as to how Malaysia especially can withstand China's sluggish economy, the fall in commodity prices, and all these elements that has also been contributing to the fall of the ringgit. And of course the government has done some stress tests, but looking at the slowdown in China, I think it has to be much more than that in order for us to be able to withstand them.
For sure. And well, of course, ASEAN depends on one another, and also the member countries should join hands to make sure the right policies were in place, and to ensure the stable level of employment in the region as well. So many things that we can talk about when it comes to ASEAN, single market. Not only that, but also when it comes to laboring, free trade laboring, it is also another one that we can talk about. And on the plunge in China's stock that we talked just a few days ago, there was a benchmark in Shanghai composite that fell, which is about 8.5%, and this will affect the regional the businesses and all those bourses, as well as perhaps they are being overreacting, and then also maybe emotional driven action from the China. But we are depending on the China when it comes to currency status, and then like we mentioned several times before, the ASEAN currency state is not doing so well so far.
And also, well, I think at the end of the day, what they're looking at here is the foreign direct investments as well as intra-ASEAN trade. As long as that keeps growing and we keep attracting more foreign investments to come in, it will help with ASEAN's investment and trading activities to grow further.
For sure. Well, that's the end of our economic news from Southeast Asia. Stay tuned for the next news commentary, which will be focusing on the social-cultural side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Trian ASEAN. You are with Grace.
And you're with Gowri.
Okay, let's do our last segment of the news commentary here. Well, according to Cambodia, they said there was a jealous wife gets a life sentence for a Cambodia acid attack.
And what she did was she actually threw acid at her husband after
Oh,
she
no.
found out that he was having a love affair with another woman.
And well, this happens a lot in the Southeast Asia. Apparently, when it comes to acid attack, there was one case in Penang, where there was several other cases in Malaysia as well. This acid attack has commonly happened because it is easily purchasable from pharmacy.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. She actually killed the woman who had an affair with her husband.
So she killed the woman the husband's girlfriend.
Yeah, not the husband actually. Which
Yeah.
kind of doesn't make sense because well, it takes two to tango.
Yes, well, it looks like she was thinking, her scenario in a different approach. That, it happened ups and downs, the relationship ups and downs, but I guess she still wanted to keep her husband with her, but then instead she did kill husband's girlfriend there.
And it seems that acid attacks are quite common,
Yep.
quite a common form of revenge in Cambodia, where corrosive liquid is easily and cheaply available pretty much anywhere, and attackers are rarely brought to justice in terms of acid attacks.
Right.
And of course, there's been a couple of other cases that happened as well back in June, where a 25-year-old woman was arrested for splashing acid on her sister. Also another case of love affair in this case. And I don't know why they keep attacking the women and they just don't do anything to the men.
Well, women are considered with the weaker sex when it comes to, just comparison with the male and the female, and that they seem to be targeted as an easy, target when it comes to acid attack. But when it comes to Malaysia, even in Indonesia, there are so many other acid attack occurs, and as well as acid attacked people who have been suffered because of their marks and scars on their body. And just to add on to this news, there was this photographer who took all this acid attacked people with their scars on the back and even on their faces, and then he photographed them and said they are still human beings. Don't discriminate them, because they find after their scars they're attacked, they find it very hard to find jobs even because of their looks. So this acid attacking cases can lead to another problem when it comes to society. So we really need to look at not only Cambodia, but when it comes to Asia or ASEAN region particularly.
And well, if you ever want to piss anyone off, don't do it in Cambodia.
Well, thank you for the information, Gowri. Well, yeah, it is true because acid attacks are very common in Cambodia. So, well, be careful. And then when you want to, I don't know, when you are angry with somebody, try to communicate rather than throwing something
Try
at
not
that
to just
person.
go and throw something at them.
Yeah. Well, that's it for our news today on the Wednesday. Look for us on our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
And also, don't forget to subscribe to our Instagram. Oh, I'm sorry, you already said that.
I already said it.
You can download our very own Durian ASEAN app if you want to listen
Correct.
to us anytime, anywhere. And for all the recent updates, just go to our website at durianasean.com and check out all the updates from there.
As well as don't forget to visit us our website, disregards.com.